Hello YouTube, this is Froogle, and today we're taking a look at these monsters, which are the GoFlight GFRP-2 rudder pedals that were announced by GoFlight last week. I've actually had this unit for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I've been testing them out, obviously in FSX and X-Plane, getting a feel for them, and now it's time to deliver a verdict and a summary of just what you get for your money. Now, GoFlight are rapidly establishing a reputation for themselves as high-end enthusiast hardware producers. I already reviewed the GoFlight yoke and throttle quadrant on this very channel, and as you'll see from that video, they are a world above normal entry-level kit from CH Products or Cytec or something like that. They are premium products made from high-quality materials, typically metal, and they carry a price tag to match. Now, these are currently on my table on a blanket because they are so heavy, and if I start moving them around, they're going to tear my table to shreds. So they're on a blanket. Excuse the background here, it's kind of warm and fluffy. Anyway, let me walk you through what you get here. So it's really just a basic rudder pedal set. You have two movable arms here. These obviously move backwards and forwards, offsetting each other, so as one comes forward, the other one goes back. And on top of them, we have the foot holders, which are also rotating brakes. So without screwing up the blanket here we go. You can see they rotate here. So those are your toe brakes. So that's it, 2 rudder pedals and 2 toe brakes. On the back of the unit, if I can turn this around, and if you can even see it, there is a single port for plugging in a USB cable. We'll get onto that in a little while. Now, in terms of construction of materials, it's a solid metal base. These are 2 hollow metal, I don't know what you would call this, shafts that the pedals go on, and of course metal pedals. You can actually hear the metal. If I ping these back, you'll hear a metal sound. Very, very sturdy and very solid. When these arrive, the pedals are not attached to the base. There's just a mounting point on the bottom here, and the pedals are separate. You simply plug the pedals on top, connect a small cable, it takes 2 minutes, and then screw in the screws to hold them securely in place. That's an important transition, I think, holding it securely in place. This thing weighs a great deal, but not enough really to stop it moving. The base is supplied with Velcro strips, so if you have carpet, the idea is that you put Velcro on the bottom of this. The Velcro would bite into your carpet and stop the unit moving as you start to apply pressure. If you have pets, such as I do, I have 2 very furry, hairy dogs which shed a lot, then that Velcro rapidly gets bunged up with pet hair and becomes less effective. There are also 4 rubber feet that are supplied which screw into the base. I don't have them on this one, just ugly Velcro, so I can't show you those, but they're 4 very small tiny feet which screw into the base, and you can use those as well to prevent it moving somewhat. I say somewhat though because if I can try to demonstrate this, the spring in these pedals, my god, is really heavy. Now, after 3 weeks of use, it has lightened up a little bit, but it's still, compared to something like a CH Products rudder pedal set or Cytec rudder pedal set, it is a very, very heavy spring. In fact, I took this unit over to my friend Paul's house, who is an airliner pilot, and told him to have a go and tell me what he thought. He actually told me that these rudder pedals are heavier and stiffer than the real thing in the MD-80 that he flies. Go figure. Even so, they are very realistic looking and very, very realistic feeling. Let me rotate the blanket and you can see this from the front once again. Now, because of this heavy spring though, you will find, or I found quite a lot, that it will lift up on the front. So if you're putting pressure on here and you're pushing the pedals quite hard, as you might need to do if you're flying a helicopter, for example, you'll get quite a lot of deflection on these pedals in aggressive helicopter maneuvers. The pedals will lift up, even with Velcro on the floor. So I ended up having to push this all the way back underneath my desk against the wall, and that's where the gotcha comes in. With this single USB port on the back, here, you are somewhat limited as to how far back you can push this, so you can't really rely on jamming this against the wall to stop it moving because you have a thick plug coming out here when you plug the USB in. That's a bit of an issue. I actually have a steel bar on the floor underneath my desk at the back, and the steel bar managed to fit just underneath this USB port. So for me it worked out, but you should bear that in mind. The 4 screw holes on the bottom that you can attach feet to, you could also use to mount it. So if you didn't want to attach the little tiny rubber feet, which aren't that effective to be honest, and you did have a sim that you're building, and let's be honest, for the price of these, which we'll get onto later, they are more aimed at the hardcore simulator person who is perhaps considering building their own home simulator. Then you could use those holes on the base to screw this onto the floor and really stop it moving. So what are these like in use? Well, that's actually where my big first surprise came, or actually my continuing surprise with these. As I mentioned, these rudder pedals, these pedals are extremely hard to move. Very, very, very heavy spring. Very hard to move without lifting it up. But the really cool bit about these rudder pedals is the sensors that are being used are of an incredibly high level of accuracy and precision. So what I found when I was flying this, and I'm going to get rid of what you're looking at and put some video underneath of me flying and taxiing and stuff like that, is in most aircraft you don't need to deflect them more than say half an inch. And then the aircraft will respond. They have that level of precision in them. You don't really need big, grandiose foot movements to get a response out of the simulator. Just tiny, subtle, applying pressure to one side or applying pressure to the other side is more than enough, most often, to fly. I was pleasantly surprised when I bound these up to aircraft in X-Plane and FSX, particularly the big heavy jets. I thought, oh my goodness, the first time I fly with these, I'm going to be really struggling to keep them on the ground as I deflect the pedals full in taxiing and stuff like that, and you really don't need to. It doesn't require a whole lot of pressure to get them moving, and of course, using something like FSUIPC, it is very easy to apply response curves, same in X-Plane, and so that you really don't ever have to approach the limits of how far you can move these pedals and still get a good experience. Now the other aspect that plays in there is, given the precision of the sensors and the strength of the spring inside here, you actually find that it's a very smooth operation. You can exert a little pressure here and then that spring will very nicely and smoothly bring the pedals all the way back to center. You don't need to worry about them going off center or anything like that. It's pretty nice to use. Now onto the price. Being a high-end enthusiast piece of kit made from solid metal, very, very heavy, very weighty, very well produced incidentally, they do have a hefty price tag. The entry-level price for these is currently $499, and that's a temporary reduced price from their final retail value of $649. So as I said, very much high-end enthusiast gear. You need to be very serious about your flying to get these things. But more importantly, you need to be very, very serious about your rudder work to get these. If you are somebody that just takes off in your NGX and engages the autopilot and forgets about it for 3 hours, these are not for you. These are for somebody that is perhaps learning to fly, that is doing a lot of coordinated turn practice, that's doing a lot of taxi practice, that's really making heavy use of their rudders in the aircraft. However, these are not for you if you're a gamer, and I am. So, you know, I tend to spend a lot of time with my joysticks and my yokes and stuff like that in things other than a flight sim. For example, Elite Dangerous or helicopter simulations like the Black Shark in DCS World. These are really not suitable for that. The weight of the spring doesn't make them really that useful in something like Elite Dangerous or a space game or even flying helicopters in DCS World, because you're trying to move the rudder pedals so much and deflect them to their maximum extent so often and so rapidly. I find personally it was very hard to keep these on the ground doing that. But for just generally running around in your little Cessnas, learning how to fly, practicing your maneuvers, practicing your coordinated turns, taxiing, of course, taxiing and doing coordinated flight and patterns in big heavy jets as well, these are absolutely perfect. Of course, if you are a simulator fanatic and perhaps building your own simulator at home, these rudder pedals will be a fantastic addition to it. They look good, they feel very realistic, although, as Paul pointed out, somewhat heavier than the actual pedals in the MD-80. Who knows about the 737 or the 777? But overall, these are very, very high quality, high-end rudder pedals, and I would highly recommend them if you are the target audience. The question is whether or not you are the target audience, and I would urge you to really think about that before putting down the kind of money that these cost or some of their other competitors. Anyway, as always, my name is Froogle. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment in the comment section below about this video, and until next time, I'll see you very soon.